Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. Have you ever felt it? That strange emptiness that creeps in when a woman who once burned for you suddenly feels distant. You replay the last time she touched you like it meant something, the way her voice softened when she said your name, and now silence. It's confusing, isn't it? Almost like she vanished behind a wall you didn't even know existed. But let me tell you something. Distance is deceptive. When a woman begins to miss you, it's not loud, it's subtle. It's in the way she scrolls through old photos when no one is watching. It's in how she lingers on a scent that reminds her of you, even though she swears she's moved on. You see, a woman misses you like crazy, not when you chase her, but when she realizes something far deeper, something that quietly awakens in her mind long after you're gone. And that's what we're going to explore today, the unseen psychology of longing, of romantic absence, and what exactly causes a woman's emotions to shift from indifference to aching desire. This isn't about manipulation or games. It's about understanding the delicate, emotional landscape that makes her heart turn back toward you, even when she doesn't want to admit it to herself. So sit back, open your heart and mind, because when a woman realizes this, she doesn't just miss you. She aches for you. Let's talk about what this really is. It's good to have you here, because today we're opening a tender but powerful conversation about longing, desire, and the intricate dance of connection and absence between men and women. There's a truth I want you to hold in your mind as we begin. Missing someone is never about absence alone. It's about what that absence awakens inside the person who's left behind. So I want to ask you something intimate. Have you ever looked back and wondered, when exactly did she begin to miss me? Not the superficial "I miss you" thrown into a late night message or a nostalgic text, but that deep, aching, soul-stirring kind of missing. The kind that catches her off guard while she's laughing with her friends, or folding laundry, or walking through a store where a song from your playlist suddenly plays. That moment where she realizes you're still inhabiting quiet corners of her mind. What makes that happen? Why does it sometimes feel like a woman can walk away so easily, only for her to circle back emotionally, sometimes weeks, sometimes months later, overwhelmed by a longing she didn't expect? This isn't magic or mystery, it's psychology and it's emotion. It begins with something profoundly human, the realization of emotional safety and presence. You see, while a relationship is alive, she might take your steadiness for granted. Your presence becomes background music, comforting, but unnoticed. She might focus on your flaws, on the way you said something that annoyed her, or how distracted you seemed that evening at dinner. The mind is wired this way. When comfort is available, we stop consciously appreciating it. We adapt. We normalize, and sometimes we criticize, but then you leave, or you stop calling. Or you go quiet, not as a performance, not to manipulate, but because you are honoring your own dignity, your own energy. And in that silence, something inside her begins to shift. Your absence reframes your presence. Suddenly, she notices the gaps you once filled, not just practically but emotionally. She begins to compare her experience now without you to how she felt when you were fully in her life. And this is the first thing that makes her miss you like crazy, when she realizes that your presence wasn't just physical, it was emotional. That you provided an anchor she no longer has. Maybe she didn't realize it before. Maybe she confused consistency with predictability, thinking she could always return when she felt like it. But now, without you there, she's left with the echo of that emotional reliability. And echoes, my friend, are haunting. This is why emotional security is often only fully appreciated in hindsight, when you are no longer texting her good night, when you are no longer asking how her day went, when you are no longer the steady place she could return to. And it dawns on her, not immediately, but slowly, subtly, often late at night, that she misses not just you, but the feeling of being emotionally cared for, held, and understood. In these moments, her longing isn't about your physical proximity, it's about what your emotional presence offered her. This is why simply staying away, going no contact, or creating distance doesn't always work unless that absence awakens this realization. She has to feel what's missing, not just see that you're gone, and here's the nuance: you cannot force this realization. It doesn't come because you demand it or because you wait for it impatiently. It arrives quietly, almost invisibly, when she finds herself comparing the empty space you've left to the fullness she once experienced when you were with her. So if you're in a place right now where you're wondering if she misses you, ask yourself, did I offer her that emotional security? Was my presence something that, when removed, would leave a meaningful emptiness behind? Because women miss more than just the man, they miss the experience of being cherished, safe, and known. Now let's look deeper. The second way this realization happens is when she begins to encounter contrast. You see, absence alone isn't always enough. A woman's realization often comes into sharp focus when she experiences other people who lack the emotional intelligence, the attentiveness, the warmth that you brought into her life. Maybe she goes on a date with someone who seems promising, but then shows himself as inattentive, distracted, self-absorbed. Maybe she shares a vulnerable thought with someone new and is met with indifference or shallow curiosity. And in those moments, even if she doesn't want to admit it to herself, she starts comparing these experiences. And that comparison stings because suddenly she remembers you listened, you paid attention to her tone, her mood, her subtleties. You understood the way she softened when she was tired or irritable. You didn't dismiss her worries. You didn't make her feel invisible. This is the power of contrast. It sharpens memory. It makes her reevaluate what she had, especially if she didn't recognize its depth before. And slowly the thought begins to creep in. He really did see me. He really did care in ways others don't. At this point, it's not simply nostalgia driving her missing. It's appreciation born from new experience. And that appreciation deepens her longing, because now she knows that what she had with you wasn't ordinary. It was rare. Now think about this. How many men out there are emotionally tuned in, attentive, safe, present? The truth is, not many, and when she realizes this fully, deeply, her mind begins to revisit memories she might have dismissed too quickly. That one night you stayed up late just to listen to her ramble, the way you remembered details about her day, her preferences, her family. Even the quiet ways you protected her peace without demanding praise or recognition. So absence and contrast work together to create this powerful emotional pull. It's not about chasing her or reminding her of what you did. It's about stepping back and allowing her to encounter the absence, and then experience the reality of other interactions. And in that to see your true value, and this is only the beginning. Because once this shift begins, there's more to uncover about what makes a woman miss you like crazy. What triggers that deeper longing, that return to emotional openness even after she thought she had closed the door. You see, longing is a strange thing. It doesn't arrive immediately. It doesn't announce itself. It builds slowly, almost imperceptibly, beneath the surface of her everyday life. And once absence and contrast have begun their quiet work, something else enters the picture. The third reason she begins to miss you like crazy, her own emotional reflection. When she has space to sit with herself, without your presence filling the emotional gaps, she inevitably begins to reflect not just on you, but on who she was when she was with you. This is a subtle but profound shift. She starts to remember moments not from your perspective, but from hers. How did she feel when you smiled at her across the table? How did she feel when she caught you watching her, when she thought you weren't looking? How did she feel safe in your arms when the world around her felt chaotic? This emotional self-reflection is where nostalgia deepens into ache. Because now, she's not only remembering you, she's remembering the version of herself that felt special, seen, wanted, and secure when she was with you. This is one of the most powerful forces in human connection. We are drawn back to people who made us feel deeply alive, deeply valued. She may try to push these feelings away at first. She may distract herself, surround herself with friends, busy herself with work. But there will come a quiet evening, maybe after a glass of wine, maybe as she's scrolling mindlessly on her phone, where she pauses, and in that pause, the emotional weight of your absence floods in, not as loneliness, but as a longing for a self she only felt she could be around you, and that longing is not easily dismissed. It's not something she can replace by simply meeting someone new. It's tied to memories, experiences, and emotional chemistry that you uniquely shared with her. When she realizes this, when she recognizes that her best, most feminine, most cherished self emerged when she was with you, her heart begins to stir in ways even she can't fully control. This is why some women, even after telling themselves and others that they've moved on, can't help but reach back out. A casual message, a comment on a post, a subtle "how are you?" that seems innocent on the surface but is charged with emotional curiosity. She's searching not just for contact with you, but for contact with the part of herself that felt alive in your presence. Now think about how powerful that is when a woman misses you not only because of what you did, but because of how you made her feel about herself. When she begins to crave that emotional mirror you once held up for her, the mirror that reflected back her softness, her passion, her tenderness. At this point, her missing you is no longer theoretical. It becomes embodied. She feels it in her chest when a song reminds her of you. She feels it in her stomach when she walks past a place you both used to go. She feels it in the way she holds herself, 2025. Even if she never speaks your name. And it's important to understand something else. When a woman starts reflecting on herself in this way, she also begins to recognize patterns. She starts to realize how rare emotional chemistry is, how rare it is to feel that natural, almost effortless comfort and desire at the same time. Because what most people experience is either comfort without passion or passion without safety. You offered both even if imperfectly, and that combination is magnetic. This reflection often happens quietly, away from your awareness. You won't see it on social media. She may not tell mutual friends. But behind her composed exterior, this reflection works its way into her emotions, her memories, her late-night thoughts. And slowly she begins to question, did I make a mistake? Did I undervalue you what we had? Is it too late? And here's where we come to the fourth layer that fuels her longing, the realization of your independence. When a man withdraws from a relationship in a way that is dignified, not reactive, not spiteful, but truly self-respecting and graceful, it sends a powerful message. It communicates that your value is not tied to her validation, that you are whole, capable, and centered even without her attention. You see, many women expect that a man who truly cared will wait, will chase, will try to convince her to stay. But when you don't, when you simply accept her decision with grace and dignity and go about your life without theatrics, that's when a new kind of curiosity begins to awaken inside her. She begins to wonder what you're thinking, where your attention has gone, why you haven't reached out. This curiosity quickly turns into intrigue, and intrigue often matures into longing, because your independence demonstrates something irresistible, self-mastery. And a man who is emotionally self-possessed, who doesn't crumble or beg for validation, becomes infinitely more attractive in hindsight. This is not about playing a game, it's about embodying true confidence. It's about showing that your value is innate, that you are a man who can stand firmly in his own energy, even when the woman he cares about steps away. This realization, combined with absence, contrast, and her own emotional reflection, creates a powerful cocktail of emotions inside her. At first she may resist, she may tell herself stories to avoid vulnerability. He's probably moved on, I shouldn't go back, it wasn't that special, but the heart knows better. And slowly that resistance weakens because desire is not rational, it's emotional. By now, she's no longer simply remembering you, she's re-experiencing you. In her mind, in her body, in her emotions. And even if she tries to suppress it, that longing finds a way to surface. And this is where the beautiful irony happens. The very space you created by walking away with dignity becomes the space that allows her to feel her feelings fully. You didn't force it, you didn't push her into missing you. You simply became the absence that allowed her to discover, slowly and surely, the depth of your presence. And as we keep peeling back these layers, you begin to see how longing, especially romantic longing, is far more complex than simply missing someone's presence. At this stage, after she's sat with her emotions and tasted the reality of life without you, there's something else that begins to stir quietly but powerfully within her, the awakening of appreciation for the things she never truly acknowledged when you were around. It's human nature, isn't it? We often take for granted what is given freely and consistently. While she had your care, your support, your steadiness, she might have dismissed them as routine. Maybe she complained that you didn't surprise her enough. Maybe she focused on what you didn't do rather than savoring what you consistently did. But here's what happens next. Absence invites gratitude. The space left behind starts highlighting all those small, almost invisible acts that she once overlooked. She remembers how you checked in during a stressful work week, not because you had to, but because you noticed the subtle change in her tone. She remembers the way you paid attention to her favorite foods, the way you naturally adjusted your energy to support her mood, how you never made her feel like her emotions were too much. And these recollections aren't trivial, they become heavy with meaning when viewed through the lens of distance. This is the fifth reason she begins to miss you like crazy, when she realizes you were doing things that she didn't even fully recognize or acknowledge while you were present. The invisible gifts of love, the kindnesses that went unspoken, the small ways you adjusted, compromised, softened for her comfort and well-being. It's these quiet, almost invisible gestures that start to echo the loudest when you're no longer around to offer them. You see, when we're in a relationship, the mind can become greedy. It looks for novelty, for excitement, for fresh validation. It forgets to value consistency, kindness, reliability. But when she steps back from the relationship and experiences interactions that lack these things, those small gestures loom large in her mind. And then something else happens, a tenderness emerges. This tenderness can catch her off guard. It might come as a tear that slips down her cheek when she finds an old note from you. It might come as a lump in her throat when she smells a fragrance you used to wear or hears a phrase you often said. Her friends might encourage her to move on, to find someone new, and intellectually she might even agree with them. But her heart will not be rushed. Her heart will not be convinced by logic alone. Her emotions will lead her back to the realization that what she had with you was special, even if imperfect, even if it ended with hurt or frustration. This tenderness makes her view the past differently. She softens in her mind towards you. She lets go of grievances more easily. Even moments that used to annoy her now seem endearing. The quirks that used to frustrate her now feel like part of your uniqueness. And this brings us to another key reason her longing deepens, the element of shared history. You cannot recreate history with someone new, not quickly, not easily. Shared memories carry an emotional weight that time cannot erase. The private jokes, the rituals you created together, the way your lives became intertwined. When she encounters something that triggers those shared memories, a place, a song, a season, she is transported back not just to the moment, but to the feeling she had when she was there with you. This nostalgia is not simply sentimental, it is embodied. It's in her breath, her skin, her nervous system. And when she feels it, no amount of rational explanation can push it away. At this point, her missing you is layered with complexity. The realization of your emotional presence, the contrast with others, her reflection on herself, the appreciation for your independence, the gratitude for your kindnesses, and the power of your shared history. And yet, despite all this, she may still hesitate to reach out. She may resist the urge to text you, to call you, to find a way to accidentally bump into you. Why? Because reaching out would require vulnerability. It would mean admitting to herself, and perhaps even to you, that she misses you deeply, that she feels regret, that she didn't see your full value until you were gone. And vulnerability is difficult for anyone, but especially for someone who may have felt in control when she walked away. This is where your posture becomes so important. The more patient, grounded, and self-contained you remain, the more space she has to move through this emotional landscape at her own pace, and that's what allows longing to mature into desire. It's tempting to interrupt this process by reaching out yourself, by reminding her of the good times, by trying to spark her curiosity. But remember, true longing comes when you allow her to feel the weight of your absence, not when you rush in to fill it. This period of silence is a gift. It's what allows her to arrive at her own conclusions, not conclusions you imposed on her, but those she discovered herself. And those are the most powerful realizations of all. Her missing you becomes undeniable when she reaches the point where she knows deeply, instinctively, that she will not easily replace what she had with you. Not because you were perfect, not because the relationship didn't have flaws, but because emotional connection, chemistry, history, kindness, and masculine independence do not come in abundance. And by now, you've become an internal presence in her life, even though you're no longer physically present. You occupy her thoughts as she navigates her days. You show up in her mind when she's faced with moments of stress or joy, when she encounters the places and experiences that were once shared. This is the kind of longing that makes her miss you like crazy, not superficially, not out of loneliness, but from a place of deep emotional recognition. And it's important for you, as a man, to recognize that you don't need to manipulate this process. You don't need to rush it. Your job is simply to remain anchored in your dignity and presence, to stay connected to your own life, your own purpose, your own passions. That independence, that wholeness, becomes even more attractive as she moves through this emotional journey. So here you are, she's reflecting, appreciating, softening, feeling nostalgia, and realizing how rare what you shared really was. Her emotions are awakening not because you chased, but because you allowed space for her to discover them fully and on her own terms. You see, when we reach this part of the story, the part where she is fully immersed in her own reflection, nostalgia, and growing longing, something curious begins to happen beneath the surface of her emotions. A restlessness develops inside her, a soft ache that accompanies her even in moments when she appears to be fine on the outside. Because longing, when left unspoken, becomes a quiet companion, it follows her everywhere. But now, it's no longer just about missing you because of the emotional safety you gave her, the contrast she feels when she meets others, or the tender nostalgia that floods back as memories. No, now a deeper realization begins to surface, the recognition of her own mistakes, her own patterns, her own contributions to why things fell apart. And this, my friend, is where the shift truly happens. When a woman starts to examine not only what you offered, but also how she showed up, when she starts to see herself with honesty, she can no longer simply paint herself as the one who moved on and you As the one who didn't measure up, she begins to feel regret, and regret is a powerful amplifier of longing. She might replay moments where she dismissed you too quickly, where she undervalued your kindness, where she reacted harshly to things that, in hindsight, didn't matter as much as she thought. She begins to realize that her expectations may have been shaped by impatience or by a hunger for perfection, a perfection that no relationship can realistically offer. This is the sixth layer of her missing you like crazy, when she takes responsibility for her side of the story. When her longing becomes tangled with regret and she starts to wish she had handled things differently. You'll often see this expressed subtly at first. Maybe she starts engaging with your posts online, liking old photos or leaving a comment that seems casual but is heavy with meaning. Maybe she sends a message that doesn't directly say "I miss you," but implies it through subtext. A question about something trivial. Do you remember the name of that place we went to? That is really a coded invitation for connection. And here's the irony. This is often the moment where a man might feel tempted to rush back in, to ease her discomfort, to reassure her. But the man who understands emotional dynamics knows that her process must remain hers. Her regret must be felt fully if it's going to lead to authentic desire to reconnect. When you maintain your grace and dignity in this moment, when you continue to live your life with quiet strength, you give her the gift of feeling the full weight of what she lost. And that's where authentic reconciliation becomes possible, not when you reach out first, not when you try to explain your worth, but when she discovers it for herself. And yet, there's another deeper current flowing beneath all of this. It's the realization that you were not just a good partner, but a man with presence, purpose, and passion. A man who embodied masculine energy in a way that made her feel more feminine, more alive, more in touch with herself. And this is something that cannot be easily replaced or replicated. You see, a woman doesn't just miss the man who made her laugh or held her hand in public. She misses the man whose very presence made her feel more herself. The man who challenged her gently, who refused to shrink himself to avoid conflict, who maintained his boundaries with compassion but firmness. The man whose life was not orbiting around her, but was expansive enough to include her without being consumed by her. That kind of masculine presence is rare, and when she realizes this, the longing becomes deeper still. By now, she is revisiting her own femininity. She is remembering how she softened around you, how she felt safe letting go of control when she was in your arms, how your leadership in the relationship gave her permission to relax and simply be. And this remembrance is powerful because in a world that often encourages women to be hyper, independent, to suppress their vulnerability, to protect their hearts at all costs, being with a man who allows them to rest into their feminine energy is profoundly attractive. This is the seventh and most visceral reason why a woman misses you like crazy, when she realizes how deeply she trusted you with her vulnerability. Even if she couldn't articulate it at the time, her body remembers, her heart remembers. And it's not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It's about the way you listened when she was overwhelmed, the way you guided the relationship with steady hands, the way you allowed her to feel safe in her softness. This is why the longing can become unbearable at times, because she doesn't just miss the comfort of your company. She misses the woman she was able to be when she was with you. She misses the way you unlocked her capacity for tenderness, sensuality, joy, and openness. So here we are. Her longing is not random, not shallow, not fleeting. It is layered, profound, and embodied. It is driven by absence, contrast, emotional reflection, appreciation, nostalgia, regret, and the deep biological pull towards masculine presence that makes her feel fully herself. And you, as the man, must understand that this process is sacred. You must respect her journey even when it happens silently, even when you don't see the signs immediately. This is where patience and self-possession become your allies. This is where your calm, your focus on your own life, your refusal to seek external validation become irresistible qualities. When you hold this energy, you do not have to convince a woman of your value. You allow your absence to reveal it. This is when she begins to dream about you again, not just nostalgically, but with curiosity. She starts wondering where you are, who you are with, how you are feeling, whether you still think about her. And that curiosity turns into longing. That longing turns into desire, and in that desire a new possibility begins to emerge. And so now we arrive at the final stretch of this emotional landscape, a place where her longing, her nostalgia, her reflection, and her regret converge into something even deeper, her readiness to act on those feelings. You see, at this point, she has moved through many quiet internal stages. She's realized what your presence meant, contrasted it against what she finds in others, softened into memories she once resisted revisiting, appreciated the invisible acts of love you gave freely, felt regret for the ways she may have undervalued you, and recognized that her most feminine, vulnerable self thrived in your masculine energy. But none of that means she will automatically reach out. The decision to bridge the gap between longing and action requires courage, vulnerability, and humility on her part, qualities that can feel risky to embody when pride, fear, and ego are involved. This is why, as you stand firm in your dignity and independence, you create the conditions for her to come forward authentically. It's not about waiting passively, it's about continuing to invest in your life, your passions, your growth. When she notices that you have not only maintained your center but are thriving without her, that's when her curiosity intensifies into something she can no longer ignore. She might hesitate, testing the waters with subtle gestures, a message, a comment, an inquiry cloaked in casual language, but loaded with deeper meaning. She may even wait for some kind of sign from you, some permission that it's safe to show her vulnerability. But the truth is, this process is about her, not you. When a woman truly misses you like crazy, it's because she has confronted herself honestly. And that confrontation is one of the most beautiful and humbling human experiences. She will have realized that her feelings go far beyond nostalgia or comfort. They are about connection, about emotional truth, about recognizing how rare and precious genuine chemistry and care really are. And as this longing grows, it transforms into an emotional pull she cannot shake off easily. Even if she tries to distract herself, to date others, to convince herself that moving on is best, she will keep returning to the feeling she had when she was with you. To the ease, the safety, the aliveness. This is the invisible thread that ties two people together even when they're apart. Not dependency, not attachment, not control, but genuine emotional resonance. It's important to say this clearly. This is not about manipulating a woman into missing you. It's about living your life in a way that naturally allows absence to reveal your presence. It's about being a man who is deeply rooted in his own truth and who understands that relationships thrive not on desperate pursuit, but on mutual recognition of value. And so, as this process unfolds, the question becomes, what kind of man are you choosing to be during this time? Are you leaning into self-care, personal growth, purpose, and emotional integrity? Because a woman who begins to miss you deeply will notice not just your absence, but how you hold yourself in that absence. Your self-mastery becomes part of what she longs for. There's something quietly magnetic about a man who does not beg, who does not dramatize, who does not chase, but who holds space for a woman to feel all her emotions fully, without interruption, without trying to control the outcome. That's what makes you unforgettable. And even if she never reaches out directly, even if her pride, her circumstances, or her fear keep her from expressing her longing, you must understand that her feelings will remain real. Missing someone is not always expressed openly. Sometimes it's a private ache she carries, a collection of moments she replays in the quiet hours of her life. She might never confess how much she misses you like crazy, but she will feel it in the most ordinary, intimate moments, when she hears a song you loved, when she passes by your favorite cafe, when she puts on an outfit you once complimented. And this is where the true power of dignity lies. You do not need to extract validation from her expression of longing. You do not need her to say the words for you to know that the emotional bond you shared left a lasting imprint. This is where you reclaim your power, not by seeking reassurance, but by trusting in the depth of what you brought to her life. A woman misses you like crazy when she realizes, in her heart and mind, that what you shared was not easily found elsewhere. When she recognizes how your masculine presence allowed her to relax, open, and thrive in her femininity. When she remembers your attentiveness, your steadiness, your ability to understand and hold her emotions without judgment. And most of all, when she feels the contrast between who she was with you and who she feels she's becoming without you. A contrast that no words can fully describe, but that lives in the deep emotional body where longing resides. So if you are in this situation now, if you've stepped back gracefully, if you're honoring your dignity and living your life fully, know this: you have done what most men struggle to do. You have allowed space for her longing to emerge naturally, without force or desperation, and that is the space where real connection becomes possible again. Not because you chased, not because you pleaded, but because you became the absence that revealed the depth of your presence. It's an act of love in itself, quiet, patient, self-possessed. So hold that space, trust in what you brought to her life. And whether or not she ever says the words aloud, know this: when a woman realizes all of this, she doesn't just miss you, she aches for you. She longs for the man who made her feel most alive, most safe, most seen. And that, my friend, is a beautiful truth. If this resonates with you, I invite you to pause and reflect. What kind of man are you becoming as you navigate this space? What kind of presence are you cultivating, not just for her, but for yourself? Because the deepest intimacy begins there, with your relationship to yourself. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this conversation touched something in your heart, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's make this a space where we can have real conversations about love, relationships, vulnerability, and masculine dignity. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos that explore these beautiful, complex, and sometimes painful aspects of intimacy and connection. Until next time, remember, your presence matters, even when you're not present.